Listen, let's get one thing straight. Guns don't kill people. I do.
Channel 62 has the lowest ratings in the history of television. What they need is a new station manager.
No, not him. Forget it. No way.
A man of action. A man of courage. A man of vision.
What's your name?
Billy.
Billy what?
What they get is a man so desperate, he'll put anyone on the air.
Hey, Stanley,
Yeah, George?
how would you like your own TV show?
Okay.
You get the drink from the fire hose. Okay, you ready? Yeah! Open wide.
He's Conan, the librarian.
Today we're teaching poodles how to fly.
We beat out the networks.
George Newman. He starts where the others stop.
We're the #1 station in town.
Orion Pictures presents Weird Al Yankovic in UHF, the movie.
Welcome, everybody, to They Call This a Movie, testing friendships one terrible movie at a time. I'm your host this week, Mark, and as joined always by my good friend Daniel Aquino. Dan, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Mark?
Pretty good, pretty good.
I match the intensity. I don't think I got it that time.
I tend to just come with energy in the beginning of every stream or podcast I do.
The lucky ladies.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Wink, wink, you know what I mean?
It burnt. I get gassed like the Ultimate Warrior quickly, so you gotta be ready.
Sprinting, and then one minute later, you're just hugging the ropes.
And Dan's going to be covering the rest of the podcast.
Perfect. You do just tap me on the leg when you're ready, right?
Yeah. So no real cold open here. Anthony, not with us today. We remember his memory with this podcast, but the one thing that I had realized at work this week, I don't know, I think you're still on leave, correct, Dan?
No, I went back last week.
Okay. So at work this week, we all had the realization at the same time when we opened our calendars on Monday. We looked, it was like, oh shit, Memorial Day's next week.
Yes. And I took off for that. So
yeah.
I pretty much told my work, I was like, listen, I'm not working any holidays this year. So I gave him the heads up because I'm just gonna obviously my wife's gonna need help around the house, and two, I want to for the first year be with my kid, So I'm the only one I don't know what this says about my job, but I'm the only one who has a child at my work. Everyone else has had kids already for a long time, so I'm like not the youngest, but I'm one of the youngest, so. I feel like I get a little special perk there.
Yeah. And I think some of them are like, we get it.
Yeah, I would imagine so. It's like, listen, you take as much time as you need. So
I think our conclusion at my job was, my job, as I've mentioned many times here, bosses are way more generous, which is one of the reasons why I probably don't jump for better salary. Probably.
That does help. I've noticed. If someone is willing to bend over backwards for you here and there and really go to bat for you, I think that speaks a lot to the job. And because I'm lucky enough where my supervisor, he's that way. If I have a problem or if I need help with something, he's very lenient. It is tough. It is tough to turn down money in this economy or in any economy. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm near the top in when I look out for what I would do, without doing a little extra in the terms of in the real estate business. But the fact that they let me leave early to go to all my niece's softball games, and the fact that they're giving us Friday off this week to make it a 4-day weekend.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's just That we all forgot that, and when we looked at our calendars, and then we're also, for some reason, they scheduled an outing for us that was like, I guess it's supposed to be our Christmas outing or something that just kept getting pushed back. So we leave early on Thursday and have Friday on them. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know, this is great and all, but I hope this isn't like to the detriment of the company. I would like this company to stay around.
Yeah,
Good.
I don't know how. I think, I mean, you and I work for two totally different areas of
Yeah.
the like
Yeah,
work.
you work for a big corporation. I work for a family-owned business,
Right.
essentially.
I'm part of the problem, essentially.
Yeah.
I'm part of the corporation that's trying to become a conglomerate.
Yeah.
So it's like two totally different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But the company that I work for acts like a mom and pop
Yeah.
company. Like,
I get that.
you have, I don't know if I told the story, and I don't need it, the higher ups. I don't know if they listen to this, so they might come after me. But
Be vague.
yeah, so for our holiday party last year, we had to word it a certain way in order to get clearance to have a holiday party. We
I
couldn't say it was a holiday party. It was like, oh, it's an end of the year wrap up. Like, oh, well, it sounds like they're going over how everything went, I guess how the year went for them.
Yeah.
But it's insane. You hear these other smaller companies like, yeah, they took us to like bowling, or they took us to a nice hotel.
Yeah.
That's nice. I wish we could do that.
Yeah, we're going to the equivalent of Top Golf, but another version of it.
Yeah, so that's so much fun.
Yeah.
But that'll never happen
No.
with me. We're lucky. I remember
Pizza parties?
yeah, pizza parties. Like, oh, that's a luxury. 1 year as a present, we got coasters. That's it. We just got coasters as a Christmas gift. Right, I still have it because fuck it, I'll take whatever you give me. But I just remember I was like, "Geez, Louise, man, you think you made it to the big time?"
Yeah.
Like, oh, by the way, here's a pin. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's insane. Just the different experiences from all of you guys, just companies we work for, which I didn't think of this at the time until we started talking, Dan, but it's a perfect segue into our movie this week. With two different types of companies. So I believe this was your pick, Dan. So what do you got for us?
So this week we had a couple of choices, and I presented them to Mark, and we kind of just settled on a movie that I had never seen before. And Mark, you were talking about you hadn't seen it in quite a while, but you were anxious to, or maybe not anxious, but you were looking forward to seeing it again. So the movie I chose was the 1989 comedy from Weird Al Yankovic, UHF. Like I said, I'd never seen this movie before, but obviously it had been in my peripherals for quite a while. Everyone that I'm friends with has either seen it or talked about it in some capacity. Yeah, and it just seemed like this could be a very interesting movie to talk about on the podcast. Not necessarily in terms of if it's good or bad, but just how unique it is and how it missed the mark with a lot of people, critically and commercially. So I like Weird Al. I like a lot of his music. He seems like a very nice person. Everybody likes him for the most part. And I was very eager to kind of dive into, I don't know if this is his only movie that he's been the main character of, like he's led. I can't imagine he would have gotten more opportunities after this because it kind of tanked.
Yeah. Not as much as you would think it did, but it wasn't much of a profitable movie. But yeah, so what's your full take of it? Where as Ant would say, where are you coming from with it, Dan?
My full take. I was not a fan of this movie. I'm one of the people that it missed the mark on. I could appreciate what it was because it's a very Weird Al movie, right? There's a lot of pop culture references. It's very zany, off the wall, slapstick humor. It felt like a sketch comedy show that was turned into a movie, like like not so much a Saturday Night Live, maybe more of like a Mad TV or SCTV for the Canadian variety show.
Yeah, that's probably closest that, and probably Tracy Ullman at the time.
Tracy Ullman, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great example. No, it kind of felt like a Naked Gun movie at times. I mean, I don't know. I think I don't know if the movie knew what it really wanted to be 100%.
Yeah.
It has moments where the plot is just so paper thin that it's like, yeah, we're just gonna throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And a lot of it just doesn't. Like a lot of the programming that they made up for this movie, I didn't understand. I didn't find it funny. Like the one where like, oh, will this animal fly? Or the wheel of fish. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of it at that point. I did like when like Weird Al would kind of take center stage during the movie because again he's funny. He has good comedic timing. And there's some good young comedic talent in this, right? Fran Drescher's in it. Michael Richards before he went crazy was in it. Victoria Jackson before she went crazy was also in it. So so there was a couple people that kind of veered off the path, but still decent comedic talent. And obviously Weird Al, he's a funny guy. He's withstood the test of time and people still love him. I don't know if he's still making music, but he's still very much around the comedy scene. And
yeah, I think so much for him. I don't know if has the ability. I think he made an album like somewhat more recently than you would think.
Okay.
But that could have even been like 10 years, like
sure.
Yeah. I don't know how long White and Nerdy would have been ago.
That's probably like the 2000, maybe late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah, that probably been his last album around there. He might have released something since then, especially with the movie, but about his life or the quote unquote movie about his life.
With Daniel Radcliffe, right?
With Daniel Radcliffe. Yeah, but the thing with him is that his more recent stuff, he's still probably really good at making like one or two songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can really, if he really digs down into something, he could make a good parody of it.
Yes.
I think his days of putting out multiple hits, or like an entire album that's really good, I think might be behind him because I don't think there's as much to parody in music nowadays. I think it's because most of it sounds the same.
Yeah,
in the sense,
you're probably right. Because what is the predominantly popular? It's either country or R&B hip hop, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you're right. There's not a whole lot of music to really choose from.
Yeah, and then a lot of this stuff is probably samey in terms of content. It's not like back with Eat It and like a Surgeon and Fat where you could play off all that stuff.
If he were to parody anyone, it would probably be Taylor Swift at this point.
He would make a Swift song.
Yeah,
but even he knows not to touch that.
I don't know though. If it got the permission of Taylor Swift, and that's a whole new revenue that's opening up to him.
Yeah, she would need to be in a video for the Swifties to not come down on him.
Right. I wonder, like, no one's obviously immune to criticism, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think he's so well liked that if he were to do that, I don't know if the Swifties. That's tough to say, though.
Yeah. What I would say here, and this isn't, because obviously we know a bunch of these and stuff like that. My point is that if a lot of them, if they think, or at least the crazy sect, if they think people are making fun of her, will come down on them because they have no idea who Weird Al is. But I think everybody around her would love it.
Yes,
and I think she would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I'm asking Jen because she likes Taylor Swift. Weird Al made a parody of a Taylor Swift song. Would the Swifties go after him?
Yeah, because she makes fun of. She loves that one person that said that her one note in that "Your Trouble When You Walked In" song where she sounds like a goat.
Oh yes,
she loves that video.
She has a sense of humor.
Yeah, because it's too true. But
yeah,
and I will agree with you in some senses with my take here. But I enjoyed the movie, and what I class as, if you've listened to this podcast, besides the fact that I am probably the more positive, I always look for the good side of every movie we watch. To the chagrin of Anthony most of the time, is that I didn't get bored watching it. Like I didn't look at my phone a lot. I wasn't like scrolling TikTok or anything while the movie was going on. And I was into it in terms of it had my attention. Now, a lot of the jokes didn't hit. again, because I think it's a time and place thing.
Right.
I think a lot of the references and little things like Wheel of Fish probably would have hit better in 1989 than it does now.
This movie is 100% like a specific time. You
Yeah.
couldn't do this at
No,
any other point.
yeah, you couldn't make this movie at any other
Right.
point. Like even when he goes off and does the like little dream sequences, those still work. The Indiana Jones one is really good.
Yeah.
It and even the Rambo one has its moments, but
I
people
think
would
those were the two best ones.
yeah, and those two, people would get. So that type of stuff still hits well enough. And the manic acting of Michael Richards, which if he didn't already book Kramer, this role 100% booked him Kramer, or at least got him an audition.
Yeah, because that's when Seinfeld came out in like 88, 89, did it not?
Yeah, it would have
before the
been.
90s.
Yeah, it would have been right around this time. So it was either right at this time or after.
Yeah.
Now he would have filmed this in 87, 88. So you would think like they didn't have a quick turnaround for this.
Right, because the original actor for Kramer was different, I think.
Yeah, it could have come around at the same time, and Larry David could have seen this and was like, "Nope,
right,
that's Kramer."
Yeah,
seen
because
Stanley Spadowski.
A lot of the same mannerisms. Obviously, Michael Richards was very animated with his movements.
Yeah, I think the two things that really work in this movie is I think Al's a little underrated in terms of the actual acting scenes than you would think, especially when he's up against Victoria Jackson, who is great in the comedic scenes. Anytime she's got to do anything with comedy and timing and all, great. When she has to have the little heartfelt moments with Al, it's just flat. It's just no emotion. But you can feel George's emotion with Al. Like the panic and excitement, and like he gets it across when he's doing that. You would never say that Weird Al is ever flat in a movie. Well, at one point he's literally flat in this movie, but
and that's where I was saying it kind of felt like a Naked Gun movie at times, right? Because in one of the Naked Gun movies, I think the very first one, the bad guy gets flattened by like a marching band, an elephant, and all that. So it's like it's along the same vein.
Yeah, but Al never is boring in this movie. Which
everyone else around him can be, but not him.
I think David Bowie, which had me confused for the first 10 minutes of this movie. Until he came on screen, I thought it was David Bowie who was going to be in this movie.
So did I. I was like, "That's not David Bowie." Wait a minute.
Yeah, I know who David Bowie is. So as soon as he popped up in that hamburger stand, I was like, oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Thought it was going to be David. Who would have fit in this movie in that time period? By the way.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting casting.
Yeah, and Al could have pulled that with how popular he was at this point.
I was telling a story to one of my coworkers where Weird Al was so big that when he said he knew he made it, he walked into a party and Paul McCartney said, "Holy shit, it's Weird Al Yankovic." But that's how big he was.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was David Bowie. But I think the thing that for me kept it entertained and really worked is that it did a good job of that trope of a movie of like save the community center, save whatever, that was big in the 80s and even in the 80s. They do a really good job of naturally building to that and not, making that the entire plot of the movie. It's just the final, like, middle of the second act through the rest of the movie. It's not like the whole time they're not trying to raise money to save the TV station. It shows them, not at that point.
So you like that it's not the whole thing?
Yes.
So because I'm the opposite. I think I would have preferred to have more of that. Like that's in the background. He's trying to save the station, but it's either he's not taking it seriously at first or he's just having a really hard time gaining traction. But it like you said, it only comes in like kind of halfway through the second act.
Yeah, and I can see it both ways because
sure,
that's obviously that's what I think is actually underrated about this movie is that there's a lot more plot here and story than a lot of movies we watched recently. And they do a good job to where the story they tell is still good. even if like you wanted it a different way. I like the idea of, Al having all the success and then having it just ripped away. And then he has to do the save the TV station, because then they get a nice play off the Jerry Lewis telethons and PBS, money raising efforts. That were huge at the, the MDA stuff was huge at the time.
Right.
And I like that. Because I think you can fall into both, plot lines. Doing it your way, it could get old. The always, building towards this thing that's still an hour away or an hour and 15 away.
Right.
If you started off at the beginning. And then in this, you can make it feel a little rushed,
yeah, like it's almost like, oh shit, yeah, we have to have a driving point here. Like what is the point of having the station?
Yeah. It's like they do it too late.
Yes.
I think they miss the ideal point in the runtime to start the driving point. I think it is a little too late, to where I couldn't keep track of the hours, which is a dumb thing to say on a movie like this. But I knew they had 72 hours, and I couldn't keep track of when they had crossed over days and how close they were.
Yeah, they don't really make it a point to say, oh, now it's down to 24 hours, 10 hours.
And I think that was part of the pushing it. I did love in terms of the telethon thing, when they lost Stanley for a while, just how awful the other acts were that they were bringing on stage. And it was just proving how it was more just his energy that sort of, helped the station.
Yeah, and one of the acts that they bring on, like the twins, I think they were a legit act, or they were something, those twins. I don't remember exactly what, but they were actors, those two.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that most of those acts were like some kind of real act.
Yeah.
Or maybe an over-exaggerated version of their act in there. But yeah, like I said, the three main people, in this movie, or I should say four, because you can put Kevin McCarthy in there as well, playing as the villain.
Yeah.
But Al, David Bowie, and Michael Richards, just obviously they have to carry the movie because they're most of the screen time.
Right.
But they are three completely different energies in the movie that I think that's what makes it work in their scenes.
Yeah. What's his David Bowie is the straight man.
Yeah.
Where Weird Al is the comedic relief, and Michael Richards is just that crazy energy.
Yeah.
He's the wild card, essentially.
Yeah, and it's just funny to see the things he can get away with, like the hitting the kid with the fire hose of water.
That made me laugh. That was really fun.
That might have been the best bit in the movie.
Yes.
I will put my hand down, because they were probably the best bit I've seen in a while, and probably the worst bit I've seen in a while that 100% would not play today. Which was the teaching poodles how to fly bit.
Yep.
And then it zooms out and you just see a pile of puppies on the ground. Could not do that today.
No, that would unless you're what's her name, Christy Nome. She would probably like that.
Yeah, she'd probably like that. You certain sector of the population would love it.
Bam, going political on. They called this a movie.
And it's not here to stop us.
we just burn Christy Nome.
Yeah. But yeah. So it has, also finding the thing in the oatmeal is also another great bit in that scene, because that is 100% an 80s, early 90s children's television thing. Is to just put them in something disgusting. Yeah, just put them in something disgusting, and the kids will love it. But I love that he had his parents in there or whatever with him. That made me laugh more than anything. It might have just been me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what are the adults doing in there? Like, they're just sitting in there. And it's a feel.
This movie definitely had, like, it wasn't all bad.
No.
They had some funny bits. Like, I like the World of Spatulas commercial.
I have a trivia thing about that when we get to it.
It was like, oh, give her something special this anniversary or this year. It's like, here's a spatula. Like, that was pretty funny. There was another one.
The whole spatulas bit reminded me of one of the few Rick and Morty episodes I saw when they would look at the commercial and it was some guy with ants in his eyes, and he was, like, explaining the products, but because he had ants in his eyes, he couldn't see. So he's like, I guess we have them here. This is a refrigerator, and he like points to an oven. And it's like the the whole bit, like making fun of those like local, TV commercials for very specific things.
Right.
And that was the first thing it reminded me of when I saw this, was like, that's such a thing of malls in that time period, just having stores that were way too specific.
Yeah, very niche.
Yeah.
There was another bit that I liked. It was very obvious, but I still laughed when R.J. Fletcher's Kevin McCarthy's character R.J. Fletcher.
Yeah.
He's yelling at one of his like yes men or whatever, and the guy's wearing a raccoon skin cap. So, and he has a mustache. So R.J. Fletcher, he yells at him, "Would you take that ridiculous thing off?" And I was like, I know exactly what he's gonna do, and he takes his mustache off. I was like, that's still pretty funny. I give it credit for that. It had some comedic moments.
It's a good bit. You can, the director Jay Levy, has some background history in comedy and stuff like that.
Okay.
In terms of being around comedians and stuff like that. So, and probably a comedian himself.
A lot of the like slapstick level comedy.
Yeah,
that's what this movie really is. Oh, so he directed Weird Al Yankovic Eat It. So it looks like he directed some of his music videos.
Yeah. So he did a whole lot.
A lot with Weird Al.
A lot with that stuff. Yeah. So any final thoughts you have?
Yes, I did a little research on this movie because
go ahead.
I knew Anthony wasn't going to be here, so I was like, you know what? Let me do my share here, and I'll help out the podcast. So one of the things I read about this was, and one of the most surprising things was that this movie UHF tested better with audiences than RoboCop did.
Oh,
yeah, that's a strange one because RoboCop is, I guess, in the time it wouldn't have been appreciated as much, RoboCop, but like it's one of it's an all time. That's a classic movie. Everyone loves RoboCop.
And also, test audiences are very fickle anyway.
Yes. So, and with a test audience, you're probably getting like mothers in there. Some people who aren't into blood and guts and cursing. So UHF is PG. Like, this is more family friendly than RoboCop, obviously. And the second thing that I noted was, UHF had a hard enough time gaining traction as is. It didn't help that it was opening up against Batman, Ghostbusters 2, and Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade.
Jesus.
So, yeah, 3 heavy hitters. That doesn't help things, but
that might explain the numbers when I get to them.
Yeah, that would do it.
All right, so UHF from 1989, directed by Jay Levy, who is known for most of the early Weird Al Yankovic videos, including "Eat It Like a Surgeon" and "Fat." The other thing I alluded to, he also did a Comedy Central video about the talent at Second City back in 1991. Which included names such as Ryan Stiles and Steve Carell. It's called Life as We Know It. Seems like it's a documentary of sort of, behind the scenes at Second City there. The movie stars Weird Al Yankovic as George Newman, Victoria Jackson as Terry, Kevin McCarthy as R.J. Fletcher, Michael Richards as Stanley Spadowski, David Bowe as Bob, I guess that'd be Getty Watanabe as Cooney, Bill Barty as Noodles, John Paragon as Richard Fletcher, and the soon-to-be nanny, Fran Drescher, as Pamela Finkelstein, who just wants to do the news, Dan.
She's the head of the SAG-AFTRA, isn't she?
Yeah. I just love the opening scene. I just want to do the news.
Listen, I think Fran Drescher she's a knockout.
Yeah.
Still, but she looked great in this movie.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, I love Fran Drescher. I think she's awesome, and it was good to see her in this.
Yeah, she might have been the second best actor in this movie.
Probably the best actor.
Well, I would give, just for this movie, I would give, in terms of overall, yes. Yeah. I would say she is the best of this cast. Maybe Kevin McCarthy a little bit because, but yeah, definitely her. But in terms of this movie, I would say Michael Richards steals the show, and then she's probably second for me. Yeah.
He has a lot more to do, obviously, but yeah. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Budget, $5 million, which is estimated. The gross in North America was about $6.2 million. Opening weekend was $2.2 million, up against all those movies you're mentioning. on July 23rd, 1989. Way to release this movie in the summer, folks.
Yeah, terrible idea.
And, I guess it didn't do much worldwide because it's the same exact number as North America. So I don't even know if they released it outside of the US and Canada. And one of the fun trivia facts that I found was that for the shot showing the Spatula City billboard, they actually bought a billboard in a remote stretch of a highway, which led for months people driving into that. It doesn't say what town, but people driving into that town to ask people where Spatula City was.
Jeez.
They wanted to find Spatula City because it was up there before the movie release, so nobody had the context for it.
How
And
sad is that, though? Like, I need to go to Spatula City.
no, people were probably like driving down a highway, like on vacation, like they did in the 80s. Drive cross country was a big thing,
Sure.
back then. And probably just like Spatula City, we have to stop and see this. What is this?
The world's biggest ball of yarn.
Yeah, exactly. And then the ad, they finally had to remove the ad before the movie was released because all the businesses started complaining about it. It was
some interesting advertising.
Yeah, and the other good fact is that he wanted to call Weird Al wanted to call the movie The Vidiot, Vidiot.
Okay, interesting.
He didn't think UHF made sense because cable television was becoming more of a thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of people wouldn't know what UHF stood for anyway. Like the general public probably, like, what the hell does UHF mean?
Yeah.
There's ultra high frequency.
Exactly. And just wanted to share that Spatula City story because that was pretty good.
I had to say that so I didn't come off as stupid. Like the normal person wouldn't know what it means, and then I don't say what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I guess Dan doesn't know what it means.
Yeah, I could. The general explanation, is just that you had your normal basic stations, I think up to 13, and then there was a second dial on your television that was anything over that. I think it's the most generic way of explaining it.
Yeah.
This was back in the day when you had to stand up and before remote controls and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have to turn the knob.
Yeah, I had one of those TVs up until I was like 10.
Wow, my goodness. Yeah, we definitely had one of those, but we got rid of it fairly early on in my childhood.
Yeah, it was my 13-inch TV in my room that I played video games on. So it was constantly just set to 3.
Yeah.
Which was where the game's connected to.
Yep.
So
I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't really watch as a kid. Had TV in my room to watch. It was when you went to the room, it was either play video games or go to sleep. Didn't get a remote until I was close to high school, and then it was watch TV in the room because I could change the channel.
Even in my room, I didn't have cable, but I just had video games. That's all I had.
Yeah.
I didn't get a TV until college.
Yeah, I had the basic, like you could do, 3, 6, 10, which is in Philly. I don't know what the equivalent would be for your ABC, CBS, NBC.
I think it was 2, 4, and like Fox was 5. Fox 5.
Yeah, I think your ABC is 7.
Yeah, maybe like 6 or 7. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was all I could get on the remote. But it was more than I had on the dial.
Sure.
But yeah. UHF, a very thing that's older than us. Essentially in the world of television.
Oh yeah.
And trying to explain it to a generation nowadays would be impossible. Because there is actually a scientific reason behind why one was called UHF and I think the other was like VHF or whatever. But yeah, so that is why the studio decided on that movie, or this one could have been called The Vidiot. Yeah. So before we take a quick break, Dan, what do you got for us before we get into the plot?
All right, just so real quick, just gonna ask you guys a big favor. 2 friends of the podcast, we want you to go check them out, give them a follow, give them a review, say something nice about them. First one being the Top 10 with Tia. If you listen to this show, you know what that's all about. It's a top 10 list from our very good friend Tia and her co-host Brittany, where they just discuss top 10 lists of the week. So it could be a range of things: movies, television, comic books, video games. They do a lot of stuff. It's a lot of fun, and they're great friends of the podcast, so give them some love. And also, our very own Mark Myers is doing the Lord's work, talking about video games, playing video games on Twitch, giving you all the latest news from the video game world. It's on YouTube, so if you search the Game Vault podcast, that'll pop right up on YouTube. They're also on your podcast channel of choice. So if you just search iTunes, what else are you on? iTunes,
Yeah. Anywhere you get podcasts, essentially.
Yeah. I'm,
And then
I'm
social
blanking.
media, we're on every social media. So
I'm blanking on all the podcasts. I know iTunes,
we're on Spotify and
Spotify.
Google
Thank you.
Play and all that stuff.
And it's still bi-weekly.
It's weekly until they
Weekly.
come
Okay.
back. I do what is now called the Game Fault Pod News Hour.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's
Where-
very informative. I listened to it on
Thank
YouTube.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And you're doing playthroughs. I know you're doing Yoshi Island. You're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
there's a Japanese RPG that you're playing.
Yeah, playing through Persona 3 Reload. Also doing Cyberpunk 2077. The only one that might get delayed is I was playing Fallout 4 for a little bit, but I wasn't having a great time with it. In terms of I already know the story and stuff, so and I'm not that deep into Fallout love to, just be able to show off things for you guys. I died a whole bunch in the last episode. So I may switch that out because I did buy Hades 2 for early access. So maybe we'll do that every Sunday instead because I had a lot of fun doing that on Sunday.
Nice.
There. So yeah, basically that's it. I'm just playing a bunch of games, streaming them, put them up on YouTube, and doing the podcast weekly, just talking news, so that we can stay up to date until the other Vultures come back from paternity and maternity leave, respectively.
I like it. Yeah, you're putting in the work, man.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And so as we said, we're going to take a break. Some words from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Welcome everybody back to They Called Us a Movie. Dan, let's get into that plot.
Let's do it.
So George Newman, played by Weird Al, is a daydreamer who hyperactive keeps him a steady job. The opening sequence is of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where George sort of goes into the cave and does that famous scene where they swap out the statue for the I guess it was like sand or whatever sandbag in the movie.
Yeah.
But in this, instead of doing that, he just grabs the statue, I believe, and just lets everything happen.
It's an Oscar, right? He grabs an Oscar from the podium.
From the podium. And then starts a sequence where he's being chased by a giant boulder, and it cuts across different green screen things to where it eventually flattens him on the ground, which transitions in to his actual job as a employee of Burger World in some small Midwestern town, probably Ohio, if I'm going with where his cartoon was based.
Oh, that's right. He had a cartoon. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I only learned about that because the cartoon came on after this movie on Tubi.
That's right. I thought it was like an after credit scene. I'm like, oh my God, it's still going?
Yeah, no, and mentioned something about Ohio in that.
Okay.
So Big Edna's Burger World, and he makes a disparaging remark about Big Edna, sprays mustard all over people, and then gets fired. And this just showcases his inability to keep a steady job. And then we meet long-suffering friend, as they point out here in the synopsis, Terry, who's played by Victoria Jackson, who, like any good girlfriend in these 80s movies, tolerates his antics to a limit. And so they end up going to his aunt and uncle's house. Henry, played by Stanley Brock, where in a poker game, he wins the deed to the nearly bankrupt UHF television station, Channel 62. Harvey gives control over to the station to George after George's aunt, Esther, sort of prods him to. So the next morning, we have the scene where George and Bob arrive at the station, and they walk in, and you meet late 80s Fran Drescher, who falls into the same category as Marissa Tomei and stuff from this time period. Just instantly captures the screen, and just says that she just wants to be on the news. She's the receptionist here, but she's a wannabe reporter. And they meet up, find out that they also have a cameraman by the name of Noodles. And then they have an engineer who, when I first saw him from the back, Dan, the Philo, I thought that might actually be David Bowie. I was like, did I just miss him in the credits? Because he kind of looked like the Labyrinth character from the back.
Yes.
And then he turns around. Yeah.
That guy doesn't really do much in this movie. He has a few scenes, but nothing.
He has a couple good moments. He has a real fun scene at the end that I got to chuckle at. So, they meet the staff, and then George goes, even though they tell him not to, goes over to the VHF network, Channel 8, and meets Kevin McCarthy's character, RJ Fletcher. RJ chases him out the station, but he encounters probably the best part of this movie, Michael Richard Stanley Spakowski, who they have listed here as a mentally challenged man. I guess so.
I would say I don't think mentally challenged. Maybe just a little eccentric.
Yeah, probably a little bit on the spectrum.
Yeah,
or a lot on the spectrum, probably. But
I thought it was funny. His character, he's the janitor for Channel 8, and when he gets fired, they take away the mop. Like he's like, no, this is all I have. Like, go get another one. But this is mine. I actually bought this mop. Well, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I love how that also becomes, I guess, would be Chekhov's mop or something later in the movie.
Sure.
So as he's getting fired, George offers him a job at Channel 62, which all he wants to do is just be the janitor. And he's like, "You want me to be
the janitor?"
He's like, "Sure, you're head janitor." So then we find out, we go through the montage of finding out what it's mostly old reruns of classic TV shows. You know, Mr. Ed, there were Hillbillies, and George just sees that you need more like locally produced stuff, like things that, you know, not licensing fees and all.
Original programming.
And so he misses Terry's birthday after doing one of the weird, like, I guess there's supposed to be cute things of saying he's going to take her to dinner over the television. And then he misses out on that because he loses track of time because him and Bob are trying to figure out how to not bankrupt the station. So then he goes to Uncle Nutsy's Clubhouse, which was the children's show that he created to try to be, you know, more local stuff. And he's just depressed, so he just hands it over to Stanley so he can go have a drink with Bob. And then they find out that all the patrons are excited by the craziness that Stanley is putting on television. And that sparks the moment in the movie when you get the montage of, like, all the shows that he's doing. So Stanley Spadowski's Clubhouse is the main show. And then, you know, we go through, you know, the montage here. He has a dream, which he inserted one of his own parody or created for this movie into it, which was the Beverly Hillbillies Money for Nothing parody.
So this is, I thought before I saw this movie, or like when I had first heard about it, I honestly thought it was going to be a vehicle for more of his music, because there's a original soundtrack to this movie. I listened to one of the songs the other day. It was a parody of "She Drives Me Crazy" by the Fine Young Cannibals.
Yeah,
called "She Drives Like Crazy." So, but I don't believe it's in the movie. But I thought, oh, you know, Weird Al, he does parody music. This movie is going to be him performing parody music, but it only happens the one time, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the only time they do, like, there might be things sprinkled in that we just didn't notice, Dan. But the Beverly Hillbillies song to the tone of "Money for Nothing" is probably the only one that's a full length video.
Yeah, just in the middle of the movie, just a full on music video.
Yeah, and they even did the thing that he did with the visual style of the great computer generated graphics of the late 1980s the video.
I think that music video won an award, did it not?
Yeah, that's what it's famous for with all that stuff. And then he also starts doing some commercials for Plots R Us mortuary service, which, again, nowadays trying to explain it, that's a Toys R Us joke to kids would be hard.
Toys R Us is still around, isn't it?
In Canada, mostly.
Oh, okay. Lucky Canuck.
I think they're, like, opening here, or they might be, like, part of Kohl's or something, like a store within Kohl's, like how Sephora is.
I was gonna say like a Long John Silver and a KFC are together.
No, a little different. More like, I don't know if you've been to a Kohl's, but they have like Sephora, which is like the makeup thing and stuff, like within Kohl's.
I probably have seen it, but I don't pay attention.
Yeah, and then you know, Crazy Eddie's used car emporium, just making fun of the used car ads at a time. We already talked about Spatula City, and then probably the slightly most offensive thing they put on there, which was Gandhi 2.
I had written in my notes, it's 2 movies back to back where someone plays brownface.
Yeah. Gandhi 2 is the director Jay Levy plays the titular Gandhi in this, and he is not an Indian man.
He sure isn't.
Sure is not. I like the concept of Gandhi too as a joke, but they could have probably found Ben Kingsley's not doing anything.
Reprising his role.
Conan the Librarian, which is actually a skit someone else made that they bought for the movie. I saw it's got its own special credit in the movie.
Oh, special thanks to
whoever for letting them do the skit in the movie.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Bowling for Burgers. The one, the other one that was funny was Strip Solitaire. That was pretty stupid and fun.
That one didn't land for me.
No, but I'm just I saw Strip and then it said Solitaire. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty dumb show. Who would sit there and watch somebody play solitaire and take their clothes? When would you take your clothes off and do Strip Solitaire? There's so many questions.
There was an actual studio audience there for it too. Like, who wants to watch that?
Yeah, and then the last two, there's a bunch of others too, but I did like the really dumb clip for practical jokes and bloopers, which is just the guy tripping and coming out of a door.
Yeah.
Was the practical joke. And the Cooney, played by Getty Watanabe, being part of Wheel of Fish, which obviously was probably play off of Wheel of Fortune and stuff, but the one trivia on that is that they actually use real fish.
I would imagine, right? They look
for
real.
that. Yeah, for that. And then the real brief clip of the eccentric doctor doing Secrets of the Universe show. And then a joke, last one, and the joke that probably we only know because of how online we are, Dan, to know about things, but a joke that is very 1980s, late 80s, was the Town Talk, which was a Geraldo Rivera type of show.
Name?
And
Joan Rivers. What's her name?
Well, you had a whole bunch of them. You had Sarah Jessica Raphael.
That's who I was thinking of. Sarah Jessica
Phil Donahue, that stuff. Geraldo. They even make a reference to Geraldo finding Al Capone's vault by finding Al Capone's glove compartment.
Right. What was in the glove compartment?
And it was like maps.
Road maps.
Road maps.
And the other one had like a KKK member on it. A prostitute, I think, was another one.
Yeah, just making fun of the ridiculousness of those shows.
Just like trash morning television.
Yeah, very much the tamer version of the Jerry Springer, which is probably the more popular in the zeitgeist in the world. So it was a nice callback to that. And then we had the Raoul's Rile. The had a good moment between Bob and George where they both looked at each other and was like, I thought you hired him. Did you hire him? When they didn't know how he got on the show. So then all these shows happen, they do the thing where everybody's loving it and, RJ's ignoring the popularity. But then they become the number one show in the area. And this infuriates RJ, to which he then makes a deal after learning that Henry owes $75,000 to a bookie horse races. And he promises to pay it off if he sells him Channel 72. And this starts the 48-hour telethon. I thought it was 72, but I think he comes a day after he needs it in 2 days.
It's the money clock element comes in.
Yeah. So here comes the fun thing, save the community center, all that stuff. And so they started, and it's very much, again, people today, people, they're probably teenagers and in their 20s, where I have no idea about Jerry Lewis, MDA Labor Day marathons. Very much what like Extra Life is based off of, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But yeah, so very much that with the people sitting, taking the phone calls. But in this case, it wasn't phone calls. Everybody had to walk to the station and hand them $10. Yeah. Which was funny. They were selling one share for $10 each, and they were selling 70. Which was, I know why they did it, but that was so funny that everything was so specific.
Yeah.
And so the telethon starts off great because of Stanley, and then they end up kidnapping Stanley. But Silo I put a hidden camera, which comes out later. We see this around this time in there to record inside RJ's office. So we have the whole thing where Stanley has no idea that he's been kidnapped and realizes it, and then it cuts to like where he won't shut up and he starts pissing off the people there. And then we cut away to this is where the point where I start to lose track of days and hours and daylight and nightfall for everything because things seem to be taking place out of order because they kept flashing back between Stanley's stuff being kidnapped and then Terry's stuff of confronting RJ, which gets caught on film there. And then, and then it flashes around and then they, once they find out where Stanley is, this is when the Rambo parody gets flashed and they go to attempt to rescue him. And then when they get surrounded, Cooney's karate students show up out of nowhere to beat everyone up. And they take Stanley back. But the fun part, which is what I mentioned about being a MacGuffin or Chekhov or whatever mop, is that the reason why Stanley gets super strength to be able to break out of the bondages, it's because he sees his mop in the room they're in.
It's his spinach. It's like Popeye.
His mop. I love the physical acting by Michael Richardson. The scene jumping through the boxes or into the boxes and around them, and just using what they give him in the scene to make the slapstick stuff work.
Yeah.
Here. And then, he fights his way out and then the scene happens and rescue him and drive him back celebratorily to the station. He gets up and he gives a great speech, in the way only Stanley can to get the crowd riled up to come and donate money to get close. And then they get near the end and the clock's about to hit midnight. And then you see the car roll up of the bookie. And then at the last minute, RJ says that, brings the thing of money with him and takes over the microphone to just shit all over everyone after he's been outed as hating the neighborhood by Philo's video was put on national or local television for everyone to see. So he starts bragging about it. He's going to turn it into a parking lot and all that. And then one of the weirdest things in the movie is a flashback to when he hands a homeless man a coin, and it ends up that the coin is worth exactly the same amount of money that they need to get the $75,000.
I think it was $2,000.
Right? $2,000, yeah.
I think they were just making a parody of when something in a movie like they need exactly this amount, it just magically happens. Like they in some weird cosmic way it appears to them like we need exactly $5,000. Well, if I win this, it's $5,000.
Yeah, and then and they get the money. They have the big celebration with the fireworks and all going off, celebrating. The drug dealer drives away. We find out that the FCC revokes the license of Channel 8, to which news reporter Pamela Finkelstein gets to interview RJ about that moment on TV. And then we find out that Philo is an alien.
That was weird. It's a Weird Al thing. I get it, but
he was like, I am done here on this planet. I'm going to go back where I came from. And he's like, okay, dude, sure.
My home planet needs me.
Yeah. And he walks off and disappears. And then the end of the movie ends with a spoof of George and Terry rekindling while doing a scene the farewell speech at the end of Gone with the Wind, while everyone celebrates around them. So that was UHF. Dan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't, again, the humor wasn't really my cup of tea. I think the plot gets lost and it takes a while to pick up. I don't necessarily understand why everyone cared so much about the TV station to where if it got lost, it would have been this huge tragedy. Because I don't think anyone really cares about George in the movie other than Terry and
Bob.
Bob and Mike. The people who work within the TV station obviously care about him, but we don't really see anyone in the outside world like, oh my god, this is great, you guys are amazing, blah blah blah. I know they do well in the ratings, but I don't know, it's different if you see people start to show their appreciation for it. Like maybe they're wearing t-shirts with certain people from the station. Like they're wearing the Stanley Spadowski's Playhouse merch.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, yeah, it's catching on with a lot of people. But this is just your boilerplate, save the town, save the building, save whatever plot.
Yeah, you mean like Safe Ferris shirts?
Is that Ferris Bueller?
Ferris Bueller, yeah.
Yeah, something along those lines. I think would go a long way. Again, I don't really know who this movie was made for. I guess Weird Al fans.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really have anything that connects people. You know, it's like you said at the beginning of the episode. It's a very niche idea. It's a UHF station. Do people really care about that? Probably not, and I guess not because it doesn't really show. But I know this has a little bit of a cult following.
Yeah. My thought on it is that this very much falls into the same category as a Freddy Got Fingered.
I was just thinking that.
Where a lot of it probably came out at the wrong time. I could see a lot of this working like 10 years later, roughly, or maybe even 5 years earlier than 1989.
I was gonna say earlier, I think.
Yeah, like it hit at the wrong point where this kind of stuff was starting to get out of vogue. And same with Freddy Got Fingered. Like that came out at a time when that kind of stuff was sort of getting out of vogue. Like if he put that out closer to when he was at when his popularity was like on the upswing rather than either at the top or coming down, that movie probably hits a lot better. And same with this. Weird Al, if this was back when he did Fat and all in like 87, 86, it probably hits a little better than it does. I think it makes at least double-digit million in the theater. And also if you don't put it out against 1989 Batman.
Right. Yeah, which probably dominated the summer. But I think with tying it to Freddy Got Fingered, the one thing I do give it credit for is they go for broke. You know, they try something completely different and it doesn't work. Same thing with Freddy Got Fingered, right? Tom Green, he wrote, directed, and starred in it. And it was like a big fuck you to the studio that was giving him money. You know, I'm going to make a movie that I want to make. I don't give a shit what you guys want. And this kind of felt the same way. Maybe not like a big fuck you, but listen, you're putting Weird Al in this vehicle. It's going to be a Weird Al centric movie. So you get what you pay for.
Yeah, essentially, the reason I say 10 years later too, is, and even Freddy Got Fingered would have a chance to be more popular during the I Think You Should Leave era of comedy that's going on now, or probably it's past as much as we love it. I don't know how much season 4 would do of that, because a certain weird comedy always has its like moment in time.
Yeah, it has a certain shelf life for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he could come back in 10 years, Tim Robinson, and it would be great. But, but if Freddy Got Fingered came out around the same time, it would be seen in the same light as that, and probably a little more popular. And for Weird Al, if this came out in 98, 99, around the time, when, his Star Wars song came out and, the Gangster Paradise parody and all that stuff. I think it was Running with Scissors or something the album was called.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, then when his popularity peaked again, this could have worked better, but I think it came out at the wrong time. It was one of those where they cashed in, very much like Freddy Got Fingered, cashed in on him and just put it out at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And Weird Al stayed true to himself. He never changed. So I think he wasn't worried about it. But yeah, I think this movie works better with I think you could make a similar story and type of movie today, or maybe 2 or 3 years ago, with a Tim Robinson, sort of being the Weird Al in this movie, and just have a bunch of his I Think You Should Leave skits just being the TV shows in there. But yeah, I think it's a good time capsule of a movie, as most Weird Al videos are as well. Like it's very much of that time period, and you can sort of tell your kids what the 80s were like. By watching those for the Gen Xers out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got that dose of that late 80s, early 90s comedy as well in there. So, all right, it's if you like Weird Al and any of that weirdness, I'd say if you haven't already watched this, go ahead and watch it. If not, I mean, give it a whirl. If it's free on Tubi, why not? You'll know in the 10, 20 minutes if you can stand it. because most of the not plot of the movie, but most of the tone of the movie is revealed that early. So you'll know. So yeah, that's about all we have here. Yeah, we're gonna get ready for a quick third segment here. And you'll listen to some ads, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to They Call This Movie. We have our third segment here, and in honor of UHF, Dan had a good idea for our final segment here. Dan, why don't you introduce the concept?
Sure, thanks very much for that. So I thought it would be fun if we made our own rundown. If we had a TV station, what would be some of the programming that we would put on it? So it doesn't have to be anything too specific or thought out. Just what would you like to have on our fictional station?
Yeah. So I'll go first with something simple, and then I'll let Dan jump here. So one of the first things that came to mind is I thought you very much need for local programming. I would think it would be a good idea to have some kind of like trivia game show thing.
Sure.
I was thinking, again, not getting too deep into it because I'm not a TV programmer, but the idea would be something to the equivalent of like, are you smarter than a fifth grader type of idea? Where, because my idea of a good like local thing like this that could, gear up would be something that the audience could yell at the TV that someone's an idiot, while also being simple enough that people could win prizes in it. Not like too, like, you don't want a Jeopardy or any of like really hard trivia stuff.
Yeah.
So you do something that's more common knowledge, or you could even do, if you're in a sports heavy city, you could do like a sports trivia show. You could get a bunch of guys at a bar would definitely watch that.
Yeah.
Just I think you need some kind of game show that is like appointment viewing, if not daily, like weekly, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire used to be.
Yeah. Or what's the Let's Make a Deal kind of show?
Like a show that, like I said, people can yell at the TV that someone's an idiot.
Right. Would you want to do something along the lines of like, are you smarter than a MAGA?
I guess you could do like that would be a very, very polarizing political thing, but that would be something
you're cutting out a decent amount of people, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, you get the idea of a concept. Like, you want there to be like a lot of these TV shows. Like, I watched a dumb TV show the other day while I was waiting to go with my sister to the guest bartender thing that the softball team had for parents. And it was a game that was just like, was called Is It Cake?
Oh, I've seen that. Yes.
That is the concept of the TV show. And then I guess they got to run and bake a cake after that. I didn't watch the second half, but that was what immediately clicked in my head when you had mentioned this as the topic, was that it needs to be a TV show where, because the three of us, me, my sister, and my niece, like yelling at each other, like, why the hell would you think the glove was cake? It's obviously the helmet, because it was like firefighter equipment. Was what they had to guess was cake, like a boot, a glove, a hose, a helmet, stuff like that.
Interesting.
Up there. So I was like instantly, I'm like, for the thing Dan's saying, it's got to be some kind of game show like that, where, because you want people to feel like they're smarter than the people in it. So you can either do a trivia show, a game show like that, Let's Make a Deal, where people go, oh, obviously you picked 8. Why did you pick 7?
Sure.
Sort of. I feel like that could be like a core, like, appointment television thing for my TV station.
Yeah, I like it. Game shows are always a good bet, I think. Yeah, I like it. So one of the things I would want our station is I think we would have an evening news program with the lead anchor being none other than Gerard Butler. So we get the evening news with Gerard Butler for an hour.
So we blow the entire station's budget on just Gerard Butler.
On just Gerard Butler. Yep, absolutely. And it's just him just reading the news. That we don't have enough money to have any other correspondence. It could almost be like a daily show where maybe we can have some other people come in the studio, but can't have anybody else like out on the street. So it's just Gerard Butler reading the headlines.
I'm picturing, just to expand on it for you, Dan.
Sure.
I'm picturing it's Gerard Butler, but when he's got to go to like sports and weather, he just like slides the chair around down the desk And you
100.
just
Yeah,
hit him from a different angle.
he's looking at camera 3 now.
Yeah.
And today's top story for sports, the
We head
Phillies.
over to Gerard. Gerard, how you doing?
Yeah, and
Thanks, Gerard.
little graphic pops up next to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's you got to have a news segment. So
And I also feel in the spirit of this movie, that is a very good bit for a movie like this.
Sure, right?
The
Just
one,
really out of left field.
Yeah, the one-man news band or something like that.
Yep.
Where it's just one guy doing all 3 segments.
And he's doing the weather. He just gets up and runs over to the weather screen.
Yeah, throws on a jacket or something.
Right. Just having banter with himself.
Yeah, that's pretty good, Dan. I like that.
It took me all day to think of that. So, but then like that was the one I put the most of my focus in. Another idea I had was a Godzilla movie at least once a day plays. Yeah. So you just don't know when it's going to be, or which Godzilla it's going to be. Another one would be reruns of classic Simpsons episodes, but only seasons 2 through 8. So you get none of the other seasons. It's only going to be those seasons.
I like the idea of classic television.
Like a Nick at Night kind of thing.
Yeah, like classic television for us. But instead of showing like the seasons in order, it's a randomizer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it wouldn't be in order. It would one night it would be episode 18 from season 6, and tomorrow it's episode 2 from season 5.
I would just love, because if we're doing the actual years, not the age us, Dan. Mm-hmm. But it would be like throwing, Boy Meets World onto like a Nick at Night thing and doing the randomizer and having one episode be, pre-Topanga makeover and then one from like 2 years later. Right. And then it just goes to college and then back to elementary school and it just jumps around. I mean, it's funny to us. It would probably infuriate our audience. I think it would be more fun if it was the Simpsons idea of just random Simpsons episode.
Yeah, anything that you're doing and just randomizing it. I think it probably works better with the Simpsons because that's
what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a show that you don't have there's no overarching storyline. But I think it'd be funnier with Boy Meets World where there are overarching storylines.
Yeah, you could do Buffy. You could do any of those that are just like very distinctive. Seasons are very different from each other.
Yep.
And you flip. Yeah, I could see, not that it would really work this way or be any good, but I could see like it becoming a thing where people try to guess what season is going to pop up today. But yeah, I think for it to truly work, like if we're thinking realistically and not for the bit, which as everyone knows, I always go for the bit.
Slave to the bit.
Would be cartoon shows, or I should say animated shows,
Mm-hmm.
Like Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, stuff like that, where you could just randomly drop episodes in and people would be like, have a lot of nostalgia for like, oh, this one, and not be like, oh, this is only season 2. I like most of season 4. I'll wait 3 weeks, because maybe their favorite episode will pop in. They got to tune in every day, Dan.
Right. Yeah, because you never know if their favorite episode's going to pop on.
You never know.
So you got to get them glued to that seat somehow.
Yeah. And then my other one I was thinking of, I don't know if you have any other ones, but in the realm of, I was just thinking about ESPN 8 the Ocho, just random sports that you wouldn't normally put on television.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
The fun thing about this is that they have started to put some of these things like actually on ESPN and FS1. Like cornhole, is now like it's like on like ESPN. And and then every so often, you get some of the other like pickleball shows up and a lot of things that you would expect to be in the Ocho, or was it like Obscure Sports Quarterly or whatever magazine?
Sure.
That he reads in Dodgeball. If that is correct, I hate myself for sticking somewhere in my memory bank what the magazine was called in Dodgeball. But yeah, just something weird like that. Like maybe it's a local station somewhere, like in Minnesota, and like there's a local lumberjack competition that everybody like is excited about, that gets to be put on our station. We go find the like weird like beer league hockey or Stuff that wouldn't be.
That would be great. Like beer league softball or beer league. People just way past their prime playing sports.
It just had to be weird. Like the Ocho just popped in my head as I was thinking about it. But I was like, it just got to be weird sports.
Yeah.
Like, because the whole point of being a UHF station, or I guess it would be local television or whatever they used to call them. There's like a word for it.
Yeah.
Public access.
Public access, yes.
I had to dig deep into the Wayne's World memory.
I was going to say, that's Wayne's World.
Yeah. Is that you have to do something to stand out.
Right.
On there, like something to get people talking, and like Stanley Podolsky in this movie did something different. Crazy energy, stood out, got them popular. So if you're doing like, the local crazy sports scene, maybe it's like this really intense beer league softball league that everybody knows about, and then you just make them become local rock stars.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Or like in like sort of how Shoresy makes that beer league hockey league, more important than it probably actually is.
Yeah.
Just because it's like local legends. But yeah. I think we covered the gambit there. We got the license stuff for old TV shows.
Yep.
Game shows.
Mm-hmm.
News and sports.
Yeah. What else can you ask for, right?
Yeah. I think all we need is to have some syndicated programming. Get some I
was thinking maybe we could try to lure LeVar Burton back into like a Reading Rainbow kind of.
Have that be our kids show.
Exactly.
Have him do Reading Rainbow.
Perfect.
Essentially, all we did. Yeah, didn't have everything covered. Kids, TV, and the only sports syndicate. The only syndicated thing we'd be missing is like your Xenos or those type of shows.
Yeah, that's true. We
could probably play in the afternoon.
Right. Yeah, I think we could find something like that. We can make a like a mythology type of a show, like a Buffy kind of thing.
Yeah, like something produced in Canada, essentially.
Sure. Canada.
Yeah. Way too clean in terms of where you watch 2 seconds of it, you usually go, oh, that's Canadian.
Yeah.
Immediately. Like anything on Ion channel. I think that's it. That was a good segment there. I think we got a little bit more meat on that than we thought going in.
I like it. I think I'd watch our station.
Yeah, same here. So that'll do it for the episode here. You can find us on all social medias, probably mostly Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok. Formerly known as Twitter, TikTok. It's probably mostly where you can find us. If you want to get in touch with us, give us any suggestions for movies there. Like I had a bunch for 80s breakdancing movies, which is why we watched one recently. So you can be one of the people to suggest stuff to us. Just go to our socials.
You can send us an email at theycalledthisamovie@gmail.com.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube. If you just search "They Called This a Movie,"
yeah,
we're on most things.
Yeah, most things. You can just find us and then chat with us if you'd like. So we'll be back next week with Ant hosting again. So for those of you that are pro Mark as host, you'll have to wait a little bit longer again for that. But you can hear me every week on the Game Ball Pod News Hour if you like my voice here. So thank you, Dan, for joining me.
You got it, man. Thanks for entertaining me with UHF and my final bit.
No problem. Anytime. So our movie this week was UHF from 1989. And the director, Jay Levy, we say to you, you certainly made a movie, didn't you?
Thanks for listening to They Called Us a Movie. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. You can also check us out on TikTok at They Called Us a Movie.